Thank you for joining us for this breakout session, the live cooking demonstration with Allison Hendricks. We hope you've been having a good experience so far with our annual Women's Summit. Just a real quick bio to present to you for Allison Hendricks, and then I will turn it over to her for the cooking session. Allison is the hospitality coordinator for the School of Hospitality Management and Culinary Arts here at Columbus State. She has a master's degree in public health and more than 10 years of experience in the field of culinary arts. Allison is dedicated to the education of food and health and believes that both culminate in the kitchen. So thank you for joining us today, and thank you, Allison Hendricks.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you, Brett, for that introduction. I appreciate it. I'm Allison Hendricks, and like Brett said, I am the student coordinator here at the Columbus State Community College School of Hospitality Management and Culinary Arts. You are finding me actually on campus. I'm in Mitchell Hall in the Culinary Theater. For anybody who has not been here with us, this is a gorgeous building, a beautiful place for our students to get their education. On top of the more traditional academic settings, we also have a full-scale restaurant and bakery. Like I said, I'm in the theater here where normally it seats comfortably 100 people. But today, because we're virtual, I just have an audience of one. So thank you, Tommy Tucker. He is my tech guru here, so he'll be working the camera for me. So when I was asked to lead this breakout session, I was very surprised, but I was really honored. And when I thought about what I was going to go over, it took me a little bit of thinking because the food world is very broad, and that's part of the reason why I love it. But I settled on this idea that I try to convey in all of my classes. I've taught cooking classes for many years now. And the thing that I find time and time again with people in my classes, regardless of their cooking background or even how much they enjoy it, is that I feel like there's something that's been lost in the kitchen. Not really sure when that happened, but there's that feeling of enjoyment and ease and confidence and maybe even inspiration. I didn't always have that. I grew up in a house that was not filled with home-cooked, homemade meals. We grew up on frozen dinners, and I thought garlic came in a jar until I was in my mid-20s. So I get it. The kitchen is not the place for everyone, but it is the heart of the home. I mean, we say that, but also culturally and anthropologically and historically, the kitchen is a really important part of the home. And I just want everybody to feel like their heart is in it and that they're confident and they're happy there. So that's the feeling that I try to convey in all of my classes, regardless of what we're teaching or what we're enjoying or what we're learning. That's what I like to focus on. So I thought that I would bring that here to you today. So I am blessed today with a very cool way that I got many of my ingredients, as it has in my bio. If you clicked on my breakout session, many of the ingredients today came from our very own Mid-Ohio market. And for people who don't know what that is one of our great holistic support mechanisms here at the college. It is here on campus. It's a free grocery store. We're partnering with the Mid-Ohio Food Bank here in Columbus, and it's open several times a week. It supports our students and our college employees, but also the community. And so I went over there yesterday and shopped for, like I said, most of the ingredients that you'll see here today. I was chatting with the manager over there. He told me that since the pandemic happened, so about a year ago, they have served 20,000 people. And so obviously there is a need, and I'm just so honored and proud to be a part of an organization like Columbus State that is helping to support the community. So if you haven't been over there, please go check it out. And please recommend it to anybody that you think might need it. It's free groceries, and the people who are over there, the staff and the volunteer staff, you won't meet a nicer crowd. They're just so helpful. You can tell that they're passionate about getting people the food and the resources that they need. And I was really honored to be able to shop there yesterday. So one thing I want to point out to you in the chat of our breakout room, My tech guru, Tommy, is going to be posting or has already posted a link to a public OneDrive folder for you. There is a recipe document that I put in there. It's going to be all the recipes that we're making today. So please go ahead and access that, download it if you want. I made it a Word document on purpose so that if you want to go in and modify and make your own changes, please do. Today's menu is all about salads, which maybe you're thinking, salad, you know, ho-hum, something that's always on the side and always lettuce-based. But that is not what today is going to be about. Similarly to how I'm hoping to change your brain a little bit with how you think about your time in the kitchen, I want to change your brain about how you view produce and salad. Salad doesn't have to be boring. It can be satisfying and maybe exciting, although I'm kind of a food geek, so I think of it that way. It can be filling, it can be the entree. It doesn't have to be the side. And I feel like I'm on the cusp of getting onto a food soapbox here about how we think about food and how we should break some of the traditions, like breakfast food doesn't have to be for breakfast and dinner doesn't have to be meat and potatoes, but I won't go there. That'll be for another lecture if you ever want to deep dive chat with me about some of our food traditions. But anyway, so today we're going to be making salads. These are all primarily vegetarian. That's because when I went over to the market, I leaned heavily on their produce. But you are welcome to toss in the protein of your choice, be that a meat or non-meat variety, depending on what you want. You'll see on the recipe sheet, and I'm going to be following my recipes here as I go through. So there's no shame in following a recipe, by the way. You can do that even if you're a seasoned cook or chef. You'll see that I have two sets of ingredients, actually. There's a basic ingredients, and that will be what you need to make the basic dish shine. But then there's also a list of add-on ingredients. And so that's if you have extra time, extra budget, extra passion, if it's a certain occasion and you want to maybe pump up the volume a little bit. Although I would argue that every day is an occasion. So it's up to you. Some of the recipes I'm going to follow the basic. Some are going to have those little add-ons, but we will get started. So because I only have a little bit of time with you guys, I have prepped some of this ahead. So you won't see me do all of the steps, but please know that I designed all of these recipes on purpose to be accessible and approachable. There's nothing too complicated here. So I hope that you enjoy, and we'll get right in it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to move over here. The first salad that we're going to make is a grain salad. This one is chickpeas and lentils, and it has a tahini dressing. Really like that because chickpeas and lentils are a fiber and protein powerhouse, super affordable. You can get them anywhere, very low in fat, but really high in all the great things that we want, especially like fiber and minerals. So I'm leaning on that today. I have already made my lentils. These are in the this little stock pot here. These are regular green lentils. However, if you wanted to, pump up that volume, you could use nicer, if you will, lentils like Puy lentils or French lentils. Those are really nice. They keep their shape. They have a little bit of bite. These green lentils can kind of get soggy after a while, but that's totally fine. So you cook them until they're a little bit past al dente, like you would pasta, but a little bit further than that. I boiled these with some aromatics. I have some bay leaves in here and some sliced or crushed garlic cloves, a little bit of salt, maybe a glug of oil or something. Just free boil them in a bunch of water until you taste and they get to have that little bit of firmness, but they're tender all the way, and then I drain them. So while those are cooking for you, you can make your dressings, and you'll notice that in all these salads, we're going to make our own dressing. That's not only because you can make it according to your taste and what you like, but because it really is so simple to make your own dressing, and I like to encourage everybody to do so. So in this chickpea salad, we are going to whisk a couple spices, a couple aromatics. We're going to use tahini, which I think is a powerhouse ingredient. Tahini is blended sesame seeds, really good for you, high in potassium and fiber, good fats. Maybe you've seen this as a nut substitute, similar to like a sunflower butter. Some people use tahini in some of those applications, but you see it in a lot of Middle Eastern cooking, and I think it's a really great dressing ingredient. So we're going to use that here today. So I'm going to start with some ground cumin and ground coriander. I'm going to make this recipe as it's written, so no scaled down or anything. Coriander and cumin, a little bit of salt. I use kosher salt. You don't have to, but if a recipe is written for regular like Morton table salt and you use kosher salt, then use twice as much. Similarly, then if a recipe is written for kosher salt, but you use table salt, that's finer, cut it in half, because kosher salt has a bigger size, so the way that you measure it is a little bit different. So I have coriander, ground cumin, salt. I can't help but put pepper in here. It's not on your recipe, but I just have to have pepper. And then tahini, which separates kind of like natural peanut butter, so you have to stir it up. But that's not hard. It's a simple step. I usually just use a butter knife because it's easier to get into the jar. So a couple tablespoons of that, which is kind of easy just to slide it off your knife. There's one. See how thick it is? Kind of like a thinned peanut butter. But I promise you, this has tons of flavor. I think it's a really great ingredient to have. Oh, by the way, there is a chat option in this Zoom. I know I was talking about that earlier for the link to the recipes, but if you have any questions, feel free to type it in, and Tommy is monitoring the chat and he can ask me your questions and I'll answer them as we're going. Okay, I also want to put in the juice of a lemon. Always roll your lemons before you juice them. It kind of gets the juices flowing. And then I always use a cheater reamer instead of having a dedicated citrus reamer, which I have this whole thing with like single use items in my kitchen. Used to living in apartments where I don't have a lot of storage space. So everything I own has to double for something else. So a reamer, I just don't have the storage for it. So I just use a fork. So twist the fork as you squeeze with your other hand. Wow, this is really juicy. I'm only going to use half of this lemon because it was so juicy, but the recipe calls for a whole lemon. Just use your judgment. There we go. Also, here's a little kitchen tip. Get yourself a bowl or even like a plastic grocery bag and keep it on your counter as your garbage bin. It'll save you time walking to the garbage can back and forth. Just accrue all of your waste and then take care of it when you're done eating. So I'm going to put all my waste in there. Okay, so we're going to whisk all this together. And then typical to how you make dressings, you get most of your ingredients that are not your oil all whisked together, and then while you're whisking, you slowly stream in your olive oil. This allows for the dressing to emulsify, and that means that it's not in like two separate pools. Like, you know, when you go to an Italian restaurant and they pour you that little balsamic vinegar and the oil in the dish, and they kind of float separately. That means they're not emulsified. But when you get a dressing and it's all nice and creamy and it's not separated, that's because it's emulsified. So there are a couple of different agents that help with emulsification, like egg yolk or Dijon mustard, which we'll be using today, another powerhouse ingredient, and the tahini helps with that. So that's why you can see, you see that? It's not separated, it's all one. So we've achieved that here. I'm gonna whisk in a little bit more. You want to do this slowly so that it does get completely emulsified. That's a couple tablespoons, maybe a little bit more. But I'm a big fan of olive oil and all of its health properties. So if I use a little bit more than the recipe calls for, that's okay. Okay, so here's our dressing. We're going to put in chickpeas. These are drained and rinsed canned chickpeas. You can use dried chickpeas that you soaked overnight if you want, but these are just from the can. I always drain and I always rinse my beans. The chickpea liquid in the can, that's called aquafaba. I don't know if you've seen that word written before. And that's a really great substance. It's used For a lot of vegan cooking, it kind of mimics some of those dairy textures, oftentimes in desserts. But I don't like to keep that on my beans, especially if they come from a can, because we'll say they make me feel bloated. So if you rinse all of that and the bubbles come up in your strainer and then you keep rinsing and the bubbles go away, then you will feel better in your belly later. So always rinse them. Okay, so we're done with that. And then also, this recipe calls for a little bit of red onion, which is pretty typical in Middle Eastern dishes. If onion upsets your stomach, I always think about that because I have a couple family members that can't do red onion, then just don't put it in the recipe. I'm amazed at how many people I encounter who, when they're looking at a recipe that they really want to make, if there's an item in the ingredients list that they don't like, then they just completely skip over the recipe like they can't make it. But just find something to substitute in for that ingredient that you don't like, or just leave it out. More often than not, the recipe will still work. So, okay, just because you don't like something, like that's how my mom is with blue cheese. If she sees blue cheese in an ingredient list in a recipe, she won't even make the recipe, but she might really like the recipe if she just didn't use the blue cheese. So you know what I'm saying. So if onion makes you upset, then just don't use it, but I love it. So we're gonna use it here. I'm gonna slice it really thin and then fold it in with the chickpeas and the dressing. And I hear that I have a question. Yes, Tommy.
Kelly says, I feel like it takes forever to boil them, but I might be impatient. Should you soak them first? And how long should it take?
Okay, so the green lentils, like the ones that are most commonly found at the grocery store, and the lentils that I used here were from the market. So again, those are the most common. Those, once the water is boiling, they really are tender, like after maybe 15 or 20 minutes, if you're really boiling it on a high boil. So I don't know if that's too long for you, Kelly, 15 minutes. It might be, no shame. I generally never soak my lentils like I do other beans, just because I consider them to be so quick cooking. But if you want to use regular lentils and you don't have 15 minutes, then you can get canned lentils. And they're actually pretty good. They're not this mushy mess. You can can them. Sometimes you should drain and rinse them. It depends on what they're packed in. You can see that on the can. And then you can just use canned lentils. They're a pretty good alternative. I don't think that all canned items are a good alternative. Like I do not like canned like green beans or canned asparagus. I'm not a fan, but canned lentils I'll take. Yeah. Thank you. Good question. Okay. So I have sliced this red onion really thin. Here's a quick tip actually about slicing onion. Let me just show you. So this is half of a red onion, and I have cut it in half from north to south. So like the onion was like this, and I cut it north to south. If you cut your red onion north to south, so like this was where the stem came out and this is where the roots come out. If you cut it like this across, which is what I did, you'll get these long, beautiful strands that kind of separate on their own. And this is also the cut that's generally used. It's called a French cut that's used when you caramelize onions. But if you cut the onions in slices like this, which is horizontal, like going around the onion, like the equator, then you'll get more thicker rings, and that's like what you use in ring form for an onion ring. So it's just a different cut, but if you cut it in the thick rings like this, if I had done it horizontally, they wouldn't all fall apart in these really nice ribbons. So if you're ever wondering like, why don't my onions ever look like the recipe or look like the blog or look like the cooking show? Maybe try rotating your onion and it might be just a cutting issue. That was maybe confusing, but if that helped anyone, then I'm glad I talked about it. Okay. So I've folded in my onions here. I've done the chickpeas. I'm going to put my lentils in. I'm going to remove the garlic cloves that I boiled in with them, although you wouldn't have to if you really like a whole big bunch of garlic. I also put 2 bay leaves in there. If you grow bay, also just FYI, bay is a really easy plant to grow. If you grow that little bay tree, you're going to want to use probably at least twice as many bay leaves as a recipe calls for, because fresh herbs are a little bit less, not potent, but maybe concentrated than dried herbs. So keep that in mind also, dry versus fresh herbs and spices. Okay. Ooh, I can smell those hot lentils when they hit the dressing. You can smell the tahini come up at you. It's really, really nice. Alrighty. I love the colors in this already, and that's brought to you by the red onion. I don't know if you guys have ever heard the saying, eat the rainbow. I used to hear that and teach that when I was pursuing, I was going to be a dietitian, but then that never happened. But when I was taking a lot of dietetic classes, we always said, eat the rainbow. And that was a really easy thing to teach kids. But it just means that if you're eating a variety of foods in your diet, if you're trying to eat everything in moderation, and the more colorful, the better, it means you're going to get all the good things that your body needs and probably avoid the things that your body doesn't want. So speaking of color, we're going to put in, this is flat leaf parsley. You can use curly too, if that's what you're growing or if that's what you like. I just like how flat leaf tastes and also looks, which I think is a valid reason. If you like how something looks, then you can use that too. So I'm going to fold that in. You could definitely use more parsley than this too. I just need to ration the bunch that I have for the rest of the ingredients here today. But if you wanted this salad to be really green, then go for it. Parsley is so good for you. You probably hear like, eat your dark leafy greens, your dark leafy greens. And you probably think that that means like spinach and kale, and you'd be right. But it also means herbs like cilantro and basil and parsley. Those are dark leafy greens, so they have all the good things in them. So eat those up too. Tahini kind of tastes like peanut butter, kind of, Kat. You know, it's hard, it would be hard to take an individual sesame seed and bite into it and try to understand what it would be like as a paste, but that's literally all it is. They take sesame seeds and they process them and it becomes a paste. Sometimes the sesame seeds are toasted, which results in a darker kind of deeper tahini taste, which I personally really like. Sometimes they're untoasted, which is a lighter color, kind of like this one. This is pretty pale. See how pale that is? It's not like a deep toasty color, like a toasted nut, like a toasted almond or pecan. Sometimes they're hulled, sometimes they're not hulled, which is outside. Oh, can you hear me? The outside of the sesame seed. Maybe you've heard of like hulled wheat versus not hulled wheat. Anyway, so it's just like a creamy, certainly fatty, but the way the peanut butter is fatty taste. And again, it's a good alternative if you have allergies, because this is not a nut, so it would be safe. Also keep in mind that all of these recipes can totally be modified for allergies. So these happen to be gluten-free, but you know, they don't have to be if you would want to toast or toss in some like toasted breadcrumbs or croutons or something. But these can be modified to be vegan, to be dairy-free, to be nut-free. Also, you could probably tweak to be maybe keto or paleo if you do that type of thing. I don't, so I didn't design that with this in mind. So.
Specific brands of tahini?
The number one criteria that I would say, I am not biased to a particular brand, but I want the ingredients to have one ingredient, sesame seeds. I don't need it to have any sort of preservatives or oil. I don't even need it to have salt. It should just have sesame seeds. So if you go to the grocery store, sometimes it's in the aisle with the other nut butters like peanut butter and stuff. Sometimes it's in the international aisle. But if you find a tahini that has one ingredient, then I'd say it's good to go. Yeah, and store it in the fridge and then take it out, leave it out on your counter for a couple minutes before you want to use it so it loosens up a little bit, and then you can stir it. Okay, so I'm going to finish this salad here. I seasoned it with a little bit of salt because I can just kind of tell that it needs salt, and also I'm a salt head, so I always kind of finish it with a little bit of salt. I toasted some walnuts earlier, so we can put some walnuts in here. Walnuts are a great, great nut for you. They're actually kind of the healthiest nut, if you will. They're the only nut that has omega-3 fatty acids, which is the fat that we want. It also has a great crunch. It has the protein along with the lentils and the chickpeas. So this is a super filling salad. I think I would make this like maybe on a Sunday afternoon and then keep it in the fridge, and it would just sit and get better throughout the week, and I could eat it all week. I would definitely eat this grain salad all week. I'm also going to sprinkle in some feta here because I love feta, absolutely love feta. You can see that this feta is in a block and it's in a brine, which is good. This is indicative of a higher quality feta. This is what you want. We do not eat the brine. It's just the soaking liquid. It helps with the cheese formation. We're just going to take some of this and crumble it over. Cheeses that crumble have a lower fat content than creamy cheeses. So if you're looking to reduce your fat content with cheese, this is a good alternative. Also, feta is traditionally made from sheep's milk, and sheep and goat milk cheeses have a lower amount of lactose in them. So if you have someone who's lactose intolerant or maybe barely lactose intolerant and they can't usually have cheeses, you could try them on a goat or sheep's milk cheese and they might be able to enjoy it. So that would be great. Okay, I'm gonna top this with a little bit more feta, but I'm gonna plate this really quick. You can see it all done. Tommy, can you follow me to our plate? Okay, one dish done. Now I've been chatting, so this dish, took a little while, but if you were putting this together, you're just whisking the dressing while the lentils are cooking, and that's basically it. So that's easy. Okay. Next up, I'm going to show you a nice change of pace for potato salad, which might seem like a little basic, and why am I going over that? But I told you that growing up, I didn't know that garlic was a real plant and that it didn't come in a jar until I was in my 20s. And similarly, I didn't know that potato salad was anything but white and creamy. So when I discovered varieties like German potato salad, which leans really heavily on mustard and herbs, and sometimes there's bacon in there, which I didn't do today, but you are more than welcome to do if you'd like at home. It turned potato salad around for me. And so I never want to assume that anybody has heard or is familiar with anything. We all learn different times. So I wanted to just show you really quick a variety to potato salad that's not all white and creamy. So when I was at the market yesterday, the potatoes that they had available were regular Idaho russet potatoes. So that's what I used. But if I were making this, I kind of prefer like red skin potatoes or Yukon Gold potatoes, those creamy gold potatoes. Those are my favorite. And they also keep their shape a little bit using them when you're using them in things like potato salad. So you'll see here that these are kind of falling apart a little bit, but that's okay because sometimes potato salad is like kind of mushy. So I'm not worried about it. I kept the skins on these because I like to always keep the skins on my fruits and vegetables whenever I can. That's just where a lot of the nutrients are. I like that texture. And also I think it brings a little bit more color to it. So I always keep the skins on, but this is your preference. So I just boiled these, put them in a pot, starting with cold water, always start with cold, a little bit of salt, brought to a boil until I could pierce them with a fork easily. And then I drained them, put them back into the pot that they're cooked in, covered with a kitchen towel just to let them steam for like 5 or 6 minutes, and then you're good to go. So I did this earlier. And you can probably guess it, we're going to make a dressing. So this time I'm going to use apple cider vinegar, one of my favorite vinegars. Super good for you too. There are a lot of like holistic ways you can use vinegar as a health or beauty product. I don't, but it's definitely out there. So we're going to put in a little bit of vinegar. I really like my dressings pretty zippy. And by that, I mean the classic ratio of vinegar to oil is 1 part vinegar, 3 parts oil. But I kind of like 1 to 1. I like it to have a lot of flavor, not so oily. So this is probably more vinegar than the recipe calls for, but that's how I like it. So that's what I'm going to do. Also going to put Dijon, super classic for this like German style or no mayo style potato salad, but I love Dijon mustard. It's one of those powerhouse one ingredients. I like Dijon the best out of any mustard, mostly because it has a backbone of white wine in it. So there can't be anything wrong with that, right? So I'm going to put Dijon in there. Salt and pepper as always. I would usually grind my pepper in the moment, but if you have pre-ground, that's okay. And a lot of salt. I know this looks like a lot, but number 1, it's kosher salt. So you need to use more than you would table salt. And number 2, like one of the biggest crimes is an undersalted potato. So we do not want that to happen. This dressing also has a little bit of sugar in it. And that's just to offset the sourness in the vinegar and the Dijon. So it's not a sweet potato salad per se. It's just a nice balance. Okay. So we'll whisk all that together. You're seeing a pattern here, right? Oh, one of the add-ons that I suggested in this would be if you had whole grainy mustard, this would be an awesome place to put it in. I love whole grainy mustard with the whole mustard seeds, and they kind of pop when you bite into them. I really, really like that. So you could use that here in addition to the Dijon if you like mustard. I really, really do. Or you could do half Dijon, half whole grain. Whisk in the olive oil. See how it doesn't break? It stays as one mixture. That's because we're whisking constantly and we're streaming in slowly. So just remember that. Okay. And this should taste really sharp. It's going to, let me taste it. Oh yeah. As we put ingredients into a dressing, they're going to get more dulled down as we introduce more things. So we need to start with a really flavorful thing in the beginning. Does that make sense? Okay, so here's our dressing. I'm going to put some scallions in here. Really, really like scallions, also known as green onions. They look like this. Can you see them? That's okay. So they usually come in the grocery store in a bunch. I got these at the market, and here's our little root end. So you want to cut off the root end, discard any like kind of papery or browned outer layers, and then probably cut the top maybe 2 or 3 inches of green. This is usually really brittle and dry. We don't really eat that, but I do use the white, light green, and dark green pieces. So don't waste that. Cut down on our food waste. These are looking pretty good, actually. Like that. This one's kind of dry, so I don't want that one. And then you can thinly slice these however you want. Maybe you've seen them in rings like this. Or maybe you've seen them on an angle. Sometimes I think they're called horse ear. You see it like that? It's really up to you, whatever you want. You could practice a little bit of knife skills here, which, I mean, I could always use it. So we're gonna cut these up. I like to use scallions or green onions as an onion application when you don't want something that's super sharp with like a raw onion, but you do want that allium flavor. That's where these really shine. Okay. Put that in the dressing. If you'd like to mellow this flavor even more, if even like a raw scallion is a little too much for you, which is fine, you could cut them up and put them in this dressing while your potatoes are cooking. And then this would mellow out while your potatoes are cooking. Anytime that you soak an onion, be that in water or vinegar, especially something that's hot, it'll mellow out that sharp bite. So we could have had these soaking the whole time that the potatoes were cooking, and then maybe it would be a little bit more palatable if it wasn't already for you. So I have those in there. Also, what I got at the market yesterday was celery. I like crunchiness in my potato, egg, tuna salads, so I'm going to use some celery. If you are lucky enough to get celery with these leaves inside, don't throw these away. They're so good. I use these the same way as I would a fresh herb, so putting them in something at the very end, either whole or chopped up. I even fold these into my green leafy salads, full leaf. Really nice. They taste like celery, but a little bit milder. So they do have the same celery taste, but they're a little bit milder. So we'll use those at the end here. Maybe just a couple ribs. Definitely want some crunch. Great in soups, I agree. I agree. And celery is so good for you. I mean, it might seem like kind of just a boring, watery veg, but it's so high in water, which, I mean, we could all use more water, but also super high in fiber, no surprise. So definitely keep that in your fridge. It lasts for a long time. If you ever open your crisper drawer and you see your celery and it's like a little bit bendy, I guess. I was going to say waggly, but bendy. You could soak it in an ice bath and it'll kind of snap back into its crunchy self. So you could soak it for maybe 10 minutes before you want to use it. Oh, I love that green color. That spring green is one of my faves. So that's looking good already. I can smell that mustard. Okay, so now we're going to put our potatoes in here. I'm going to do this carefully since these are those russets and they're more kind of pliable. See how soft this is? If you were using a different type of potato, again, like a red skin or a Yukon Gold, they wouldn't get all soft like that, but I'm not worried about that. That's okay. And then more herbs. I'm going to use my flat leaf parsley again. And I put a little bit of stem in my whenever I use parsley. I'm not really concerned. As long as it doesn't look super like old or brown or dry. I use parsley stems. I definitely use cilantro stems, especially if you're gonna do like any Thai or Vietnamese cooking. Sometimes cilantro stems is an ingredient that they call for. So don't waste those. Really, really good. I don't, Tommy's hungry. We'll eat after this breakout session is over. Sorry, guys. If you were here, we could all eat together. You could use a bunch of herbs in here. Again, I only have parsley, but basil would be beautiful. Chervil, tarragon. Ooh, dill would be great. Love dill with potatoes. They were out of that. I went to the grocery store this morning to supplement with some ingredients and they were specifically out of dill. I would have picked that up, but next time. So if this was a super green salad, then all the better. It's pretty green. I like that. You'll notice that some of the add-ons are, you could put in a can of drained and rinsed beans here for a little bit of extra protein. You could roughly chop in some hard-cooked eggs. That would be really nice. I don't know if you've ever had shellfish in potato salad, like shrimp or lobster. It's really good. So that would be a really nice add-in on here. I mean, potatoes are my favorite veg, even though I know they're a starch, but I love them. And so think of them as a blank canvas. You can kind of do whatever you want. Okay, this looks great. The last thing I'm going to do, can we go over to the plating here? Okay. I worked at a restaurant once where we always finished all of our potato dishes with a little bit of lemon zest. And I had never done that growing up. I'd never had that before, but ever since experiencing at that restaurant, I can't, now I'm hooked. I can't go without. So just a little bit of fresh lemon here over the top. You've probably heard this before, but if you have a whole lemon and you're going to use the zest and the juice, please zest first before you juice, because it's really difficult to zest a juiced fruit. So zest first. Sure.
How do I dry my fresh herbs that I
Okay. Okay, well, you can dehydrate in a couple of different ways. You don't necessarily have to have like a designated dehydrator per se. You can do that in a really low temperature in the oven on a baking sheet. Just spread out your herbs in a single layer and have the oven on, again, really low, like maybe 180 or 200. Keeping an eye on the herbs. It's going to take a little while, but they could dry out. That's not how I do it though. I usually bundle them in bunches and tie the bunches either with twine if I'm feeling kind of fancy, or maybe just with like a twisty tie, you know, those metal plastic things, and then suspend them upside down. So you have like you take your, here, I'll show you. I have a bunch right here. So if I grew this parsley and I wanted to dry it, I would bundle it up and then I would hang it upside down. You can do this like from a coat hanger with a clothespin. I've seen people like drape a piece of twine like inside their window, and they have all these bunches throughout the winter time, maybe of thyme and sage and parsley and basil. Ooh, rosemary is a good drying herb. And then just watch it. And as the season goes on, they'll get shriveled and they'll get darker and they'll get drier. And then you can kind of break off as much as you want and use it as you cook. Or you can take the entire bundle, take it off of the hanging, strip off all the leaves, and then put it maybe in a little glass or plastic jar, repurpose, upcycle one of your containers. And then you have homemade dried herbs. Great question. Well, we are going to do a little spritzer, Kelly, because the market had orange juice and cranapple juice. We're going to be doing a non-alcoholic drink with our salads here today. Although the added ingredient to the spritzer, vodka, would certainly not be out of place. Or instead of topping it off with sparkling water, you could top it off with champagne. These are all salads. One of the reasons why I like these is because these could sit at room temp for a while. So like, you know, you hear kind of scary, like if you have salads that are mayo based, don't put them in the sun, don't let them sit out for too long. That does not apply here. So I'm thinking that maybe if these were salads you were making in the warmer months, then you want something cool and crisp. So a spritzer or a lemonade or an Arnold Palmer or a mojito or sparkling white wine or just a really crisp white wine. That's what I would kind of go to with these. But my motto is eat and drink what you like. So I know that there are a lot of maybe intimidating food and drink pairings, like you have to drink red wine if you're going to eat steak. But if you don't like red wine, then just drink what you want when you're eating your steak. So my suggestion would be something cool and crisp and maybe effervescent, but it's really up to you. So I hope that doesn't dodge your question too much. I hope it kind of answers it. Okay, so 2 dishes down. Let me clean up a little bit. That's a kitchen habit. You kind of clean as you go. And that way, at the end, you have less to do. Plus, I'm just an OCD clean person, so I have a hard time sitting here with this mess. Okay. next up, tuna salad, which again is something that I thought had to be white and creamy, but this is a really great version. It's very, very bright. It leans on lime and has cooling cucumber and pickled onions. I decided to do this after I went to the market and they had cucumber and they also had canned tuna. So kind of thought this up a little bit. One of the upgrades, if you will, would be to get a really nice oil-packed tuna. So good. You could save that oil and either use it in this recipe or keep it in a jar in your fridge and then use it moving forward, like maybe in a salad dressing. Be so good. Oh, or finishing like drizzled over roasted veg or something. Really, really great. Okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, so that's an add-on. So yeah, this is kind of a twist on tuna salad. Again, because it's not oily, mayo-y and creamy, this could sit out and it would be okay. And I feel like it's just lighter. It's a satisfying salad without feeling like nothing because it's still light, but it's still hearty. You'll see, I'll just get to doing it. Okay, so the first thing I did before this breakout session started was I made some quick pickled onions. I don't mean that I pickled like in the canning jar with the sound when you open it up. This is a quick pickle. So it does not have the shelf life that normal pickling does. So this will not be good for years. You know, I just want to make sure all are safe, but this will be good for a couple of weeks and it's super simple. So all I did was cut up red onion. You can see I did it in those long pieces again, like I did in the chickpea and lentil salad. I put this in a mixture. I actually just nuked this watery mixture first. I did it in the microwave. So this is half water, half vinegar, a little bit of salt, a big pinch of sugar, brought that to a boil in the microwave, whisked it up with a fork, and then I put these onions in it and tried to submerge them. Believe it or not, when I first put these onions in, they were overflowing over this container. And then as they sit in that pickling liquid, they kind of like schmooze on down kind of. And so now you can see they've submerged under the water line. So these are fantastic. I always have these in my fridge. I use these quick pickled onions on like tacos, scrambled eggs, stir fry bowls, salads. They're just a nice bite, a vinegary, crunchy hit. And I love that I can make them in like 10 minutes. And then they get better as they sit in the liquid. So I did this again before the breakout session started, but truly just microwaved and they've been sitting now for about a half hour or whatever. So that is a step I did before. And now we're gonna prep our cucumbers. These are the cucumbers that I got at the market. These are regular cucumbers that you would find in your grocery store or at a farmer's market. This is an opportunity for the upgrade, the add-on. If you wanted to use like Persian cucumbers or English cucumbers, you can find those English cucumbers in the grocery store. You probably know about the ones I'm talking about. They're a little bit longer and they're in that shrink wrap. Have you seen that? They're a little bit narrower too. I really like those because they have fewer seeds on the inside and their skin is a little bit thinner and less waxy. So unlike regular cucumbers that oftentimes you have to peel, you know, that like chewy, waxy outside, an English cucumber, you don't have to. So one less step. But this one is the normal one that I got at the market and I want to use the produce that they have there. So we're going to use this one. Was there a question?
Does it matter what kind of vinegar is used?
You want to use one that's super sharp. So there is a spectrum of vinegars like champagne vinegar, rice wine vinegar. Those are more of like a softer vinegar. And then the really sharp ones, I'm thinking like white vinegar, you know, how you can use it in even like some cleaning incarnations. So you want to use a sharper one, something like red wine vinegar, something like white vinegar, something like apple cider vinegar. Those will get you a more intense, pickly product and quicker too. If it was sitting in, for example, like that really nice, beautiful, soft champagne vinegar, it would have to sit for a really long time. And the whole great beauty of the quick pickle is that it is quick. So use a sharper one. Does that make sense? And not balsamic. That is considered one of those softer, sweeter, finishing vinegars. Balsamic vinegar is not the place for making a quick pickle.
I can't eat onions, but I can have green onion tops and chives. Is there a way to get a similar pickle?
Absolutely. Also, I don't know if you can eat shallots. Sometimes people who have an onion thing, they actually can, if it turns out that they can eat shallots, which is kind of like onion and garlic mixed together. So if you could eat shallots, that would be a great way here. You could definitely pickle the tops of scallions. One of the things I love about the quick pickle thing is you can pickle anything. So really get out of the box of what you think a pickle needs to be. It's not just cucumber pickle, you know, like the dill pickles you're used to having. You can pickle carrots, you can pickle radishes. Like pickled daikon. If you've ever had a banh mi, that Vietnamese sandwich, it has that slaw on it, those long strings of those white crunchy veg, that's daikon, that's a radish. You can pickle anything. Have you seen that bright yellow turmeric pickled cauliflower sometimes on a pickle plate? You can pickle cauliflower. So just experiment, pickle what you can tolerate. And after a couple days, maybe of it sitting, see if you like it, see if you need to adjust it, see if it's spicy enough for you. You could add some red pepper flakes in here. You could add some whole spices like whole mustard seeds or whole coriander seeds. Dill would be great in here. The quick pickle is a very flexible formula, is my point. So just try it. Now, because I'm using these regular cucumbers, I'm going to peel half of the outside of the peel so we don't have really intense waxiness. Again, if we were using Persian or English, we would not need to do this. It's not hard, just an extra step. So that's why I'm doing it. Also, I guess it is kind of a cool effect, that pinwheel effect. So we're going to cut these in, I don't know, maybe thin coins, 1/2 inch, 1/4 of an inch. These are all pretty rustic, as you can probably guess. I'm not very stringent on the directions here. See how they look kind of stripy around the edges? That's kind of cute, I guess. We'll just cut the ends off here. These looked kind of dry and gnarly a little bit. So we're going to cut these up. Then we're going to douse them in salt and lime juice. Start to soften these cucumbers a little bit. It's almost like they're doing their own little quick marinade pickling a little bit. And this will be a really nice offset to the fattiness of the tuna. And also we're going to put an avocado in here. Tuna and avocado, classic California combination. So it's a nice offset of creamy, fatty, and then kind of crunchy and sharp. Also, this recipe calls for fresh mint, which was sold out at the grocery store, but you can imagine this summer, we're gonna have plenty of mint. So this would be a great place to use up all of your mint. Side note, please plant your mint in a container, like in a pot or, you know, whatever, because if you do not, you will have an entire yard of mint. So unless you really love mint, it's super invasive. You will have plenty, believe me, if you put it in a container. So if you're thinking about starting mint this year, either by seed or by starter plug plant, do it in a container. You will thank me later. Okay, so I'm gonna do my fork reamer thing here for the lime. This is really nice and juicy. I did roll it. I don't know if you saw me. That gets it going a little bit. I've also heard that you can microwave your citrus to get them to be juicy, like instead of rolling, or if rolling doesn't really seem to do it, before you cut into your citrus, you can microwave it for like 5 or 10 seconds. I have never done that. I have visions of exploding fruit in my microwave, but I have seen that floating around the internet. Maybe that is a tenderizing technique that's legit. You can try that if you want. So we have the lime in there. I'm going to sprinkle it with salt. Toss that together. And that smells good. I'm kind of getting like a margarita vibe right now. This is nice. Okay. Let that do its thing. And now in another bowl, we're going to work on our tuna and our avocado. So if you have tuna that is packed in oil, you definitely want to drain this off in the sink. I'm sorry, if it's packed in water, I want to make sure I make this clear. If it's packed in water, you want to drain it off and you wouldn't necessarily use the water. If it's packed in oil, then drain it into a container and save that oil like we talked about. This is water though, so I'm just going to drain it out. Okay. And I think that canned tuna kind of gets a bad rap. It's a great, great affordable option. It's all over the spectrum in terms of fanciness and price. It's a great affordable way to add a hit of protein to any dish. Also, if you have someone who is trying to avoid meat, but they will eat fish, this is a great option as well. So rethink tuna. Let's stop the judgment a little bit. So we're going to have our tuna in here. I have my avocado. This is a Hass avocado. This is the kind that I like to buy. It's dark black on the outside when it's ripe. You maybe have seen a Florida avocado, which is those really big ones. They're smooth on the outside and they're green. There's nothing wrong with them. I just like the taste of these better. And you never know if your avocado is super beautiful on the inside until you cut into it. So it seems right. It's giving to my thumb, but we'll find out together whether this is good. So here we go. Hopefully it's beautiful and creamy inside and not all brown and mealy. Ah, it's perfect. Okay, awesome. Very good. So I like to score this inside. You take your knife and you run it perpendicular little cubes here, not through the skin on the back, just through the green flesh. So score it on both sides. Super careful when you take the pit out, but the easiest way to do this is to just whack the pit with your knife and then twist. But again, be super careful. See that? Easy. Oh, just leave it out. Yeah. You don't have to use this. If you want to add a little bit of like creamy fattiness to something that avocado would be in, you could always put in like some kind of creamy cheese if you want. Like I have a friend who always uses like a creamy chev, which is a goat cheese in place of avocado. Chev certainly has a stronger flavor than avocado though. So, you know, don't do that if it's supposed to be something that's like more maybe Mexican or Tex-Mex flavor. Chev isn't really in there. But if you don't like it, just leave it out. You're fine. Okay. Avocado and tuna. Yum. It smells really good in here, you guys, already. I'm also going to put some of these pickled onions in here. Beautiful colors. Can you see that? Gorgeous. A little bit, and then a little bit of the liquid. Boom. Break this tuna up. This is pretty good quality. Can you see how big these flakes are? It's awesome. In fact, I kind of need a fork instead. I don't want to break it up too much though. I don't want this to be like a mealy, you can't even tell what it is type tuna salad. You know what I mean? Yum. Okay. Lastly, I'm going to get some cilantro, my favorite herb. This would also be great for mint. You'll notice that I'm keeping my herbs in this glass of water. This is how I store most of my herbs when I come home from the grocery store. I wash and dry them, then put them in water just like you would cut flowers. And you can keep these in the fridge and they'll last you a pretty long time. If you don't want to do this, after you dry and wash them, you can put them in like a zip top bag with a paper towel inside, squeeze out all the air and keep it in your crisper. And you know, just kind of watch it. They'll last you maybe a week. But definitely use them right away. And like I said, use a lot. If I were at home, I'd probably use more than this. because I say use herbs like you would any other dark leafy green. It doesn't have to be like a little garnish at the end. If you don't like cilantro, if you're that super taster thing, you could use parsley here or stick with the mint. Basil has some kind of minty qualities to it too, so you could use that as well. Ooh, Thai basil would be really, really sharp here. That would be nice. But I like cilantro, so I'm going to use it. Okay, time to plate this one. So we're gonna start with our cucumbers. I don't mind if some of this limey liquid follows the cucumbers onto the plate. I like this plate because it has an edge to it, so it's not getting my counter all soppy. But if you wanted to use a bowl for this, that would be fine to contain all this liquid. I like the liquid though, yum. Oh, okay, I'll get it. Wait, stay on the camera, Tommy. I don't know what the name of this knife is because this is my great grandmother's knife, actually, if you can believe it. My grandma on my dad's side just gave it to me recently, and I do not know the brand, but I love that it's been held by so many women in my family. Hey, go women. So this is the knife that I use all the time. Also, I really love how it's almost like a mini cleaver in a way. And by that, I mean, see how like deep it is or how high or how wide it is. I really like that as a way to like transport and scoop instead of a really skinny knife. So it kind of doubles as a nice transport. It has a brand on here, but it's so faded. I can't even read it. So I'm sorry, I can't tell you, but here's my recommendation for buying a knife. This is what I say in all my classes. And I think it's a pretty good way to do it. Oh, I'm gonna keep assembling the salad, but I'll talk you through how to choose a knife, if that's okay. So my suggestion for buying a knife is go to a super swanky kitchen store like a Williams Sonoma or a Sur La Table or something and try out their knife. Ask someone who's working there if you can try out a knife, and it really is like test driving it. They'll open the case and they'll bring you a bunch of different knives and maybe something to cut like a potato or a carrot or something, and try it out because all knives are different. You need something that fits with your hand. Do you like the weight of it? Do you like the length of it? Do you like how it feels? Definitely try that. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of pepper here. And then once you find the knife that feels right to you, go online and buy it for cheaper. That's what I always suggest. Or if you want, buy it right there in the store and you'll be all good to go and you can cook that night. So you can see, I'm going to cover it with the cilantro, which maybe you're thinking, no, we worked so hard for all of those flavors, but you will be thankful because once you serve this off onto someone's plate, it's going to start to toss itself and that cilantro will start to go down into the salad. So don't worry about your garnishes. They will distribute all around. I just like to put it on top there. I think green always makes things look better. So that is our layered tuna salad. I think it's a great twist from the creamy white salad. It's got those zingy, limey, pickled onion flavors and the really nice high quality tuna. This is something that could sit for a while. In fact, it would probably get better as it sat. My only concern would be that maybe the avocado would start to brown a little bit, although you have that harsh lime in there that could help with the oxidation. So it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Also, it's not going to affect the flavor at all if it starts to turn brown, so I'm not worried about that. So there we are. Okay, last salad is a citrus salad. I'm going to, okay, I love cutting boards like this with the little grippies on the side. It keeps them safe and secure on my counter. But if there's two sides, then awesome. This had like all my, you know, like onion and garlic in here. And I don't want that necessarily with oranges like we're about to cut. So then I can just flip it. Okay, it's the little things though, you know. All right. Last one. So they had oranges at the market. So that's why I decided to include this salad. They also had red onion. So that's also why I included red onion in so many recipes. But if you are not a fan of citrus, or it's not necessarily citrus season, if you will, or if you can't find the type of citrus that you'd like, this salad, the way that we're making it, the toppings that could be put on it, the dressing, this would be great for any family of fruit. And by that, I mean an array of different melons would be really beautiful here. An array of different stone fruit would be really nice. And by that, I mean things like nectarines and plums and peaches and cherries. So as long as you're kind of using a family, if that makes sense, this is a really agreeable recipe. So what I've already done, just for the sake of time, but you would do this, you know, in the moment when you wanted to serve this. I took our oranges and I prepped them already, and I have them here in a strainer set over some minced red onion. And I did that because, do you remember earlier we were talking about how you can mellow out onion by having it soak in a hot liquid or an acidic liquid? So this has been sitting here this whole time. So hopefully now it'll be nice and mellow. But I prepared my citrus in a strainer over here, and it's mellowing out the onion. I'm gonna walk you through how I did this though. I wanted to show you on this really beautiful, I bought this blood orange today at the grocery store, and I think that a mix of citrus here would really make this dish shine, like clementines and ruby grapefruit and navel oranges, maybe cara oranges, blood orange definitely. So we're going to take the peel and the pith off. It's kind of like how you would supreme or segment a citrus. We're not going to go that far, but we're going to start off that process. So this is how you would start it off. You take your citrus, let me get these herbs off my knife here, and you cut the top and the bottom off until you can see the flesh on the inside. So that depends on the citrus. Sometimes it can be a really shallow cut. Here, I'll do this on purpose. We can almost see it, but I want to see more than that. So I'm going to cut a little bit more like that. Oh, this flavor. I'm sorry, this, well, it is going to be good flavor, but this color is going to be awesome. Okay, so you cut the top and the bottom off until you can see a little bit more. I need a little bit more. There we go. And then you're going to run your knife. Now this just takes practice, okay? It's not hard, it just takes practice. You'll be fine. You take your knife and you separate the peel and the pith, which is this white part. You never want to eat the white part. If you're zesting, you never want to zest all the way down to the white. If you're doing this method, you don't want to include the white. You're going to run it around the fruit, trying to get as little flesh taken off, but taking off all that white and peel. Do you see what I'm doing here? And you can go back, take some off. You missed some. It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, got it? Now, if you had taken off a lot of flesh in these, you could take this and like squeeze it over if you want. You might be able to get a little bit of juice off. I don't have too much juice coming off here, so only a little bit. I just never like to waste, so I'm gonna get every little ounce of flavor I can out of here. Okay, now this is where we could go to our supreming, which is where you go in between the segments here and you get all the segments. But today we're just gonna slice it super simple. So you're just gonna slice it in maybe like 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch rounds, probably 1/4 inch. And this is where the different shapes of citrus that you use will look really pretty on the plate. when these wheels are different shapes and sizes. If it has big seeds, I would scoop them out here, but this one doesn't, looks really nice. So this is an arranged salad. There are a couple of different styles of salad. You have tossed salad, you have composed salad, you have layered salad, you have arranged salad. This is an arranged salad. These were the navel oranges that I got, again, from the market. Like I said, some like ruby red grapefruit would be really beautiful here. Okay. Now, I'm going to take the onions that were softening in the citrus and sprinkle some on here. If you don't like onion, you don't want to do this, you do not have to. No worries. Okay. Just for the sake of this demo, I would normally put more onion on there because I'm kind of an onion head, but I won't today. I want to save the juices that were at the bottom of this bowl, those beautiful juices that were sitting there accumulating, because again, that's free flavor and we want to use that. Now you can probably guess we are going to make our dressing right in this bowl. So, okay, use your whisk if you have one, but I'm going to use my fork. We have the accumulated juices here, and then we can use vinegar, like a red or white wine vinegar, or lemon. I have my leftover lemon from when I used it earlier though, so I might as well just use it. So I'm going to do my reaming method here. Super easy. About a tablespoon. Again, I like a lot of vinegar bite, so that was probably more than a tablespoon, but that's okay. Get those seeds out. Okay. And use a little Dijon. Great tangy mustard flavor, and also the emulsifier to make our dressing stick together. Yum. Salt and pepper. Yum. And then we're just going to, oh my gosh, the kitchen fairy just stopped by. I got my whisk. Thank you, kitchen fairy. Okay, whisk that all together and do our streaming thing. This salad is really nice with a mint addition. If you had that mint, you know, growing so crazy in your garden, I would slice that really, really thin, like chiffonade at the end, and sprinkle it all over. Really beautiful with citrus, kind of offsets this dressing too. Good. Nice and sharp. Okay. So, we have our citrus salad. I'm going to drizzle the dressing over top. Can you see it? Tommy. Wonderful, thank you. Drizzle that over. This is where we would sprinkle with the mint if we had it. And then I'm going to top it with my feta again. So we have that contrast happening in this salad like we've had with all of them. We have the salty and the sweet, we have the creamy and the crunchy. It's just fantastic. Super fresh, a really nice change of pace. This would be really great if you maybe had like pork tenderloin on the side, if you needed to have some meat with this. Pork and fruit, natural, very, very nice. Ooh, or like a meaty fish. That would be really nice, like a halibut or a swordfish. I take it back, go with the meaty fish. Okay, lastly, I had to end with a drink. Anytime that anybody comes over, I'm always shoving some kind of glass of something in their hand. I always like to have that kind of household. So this is a spritzer. Again, we could pump up the volume if we wanted to top this with champagne or sparkling water, but this is a non-alcoholic version, really easy sipping, nice like afternoon beverage, really cooling, very nice. These are highball glasses, and fill these with ice. And then I'm gonna do equal parts orange juice and cran apple. Now, this is a little bit of fanciness if you want to do it. I'm gonna put the OJ in first. Okay. Like that? Okay. Okay, now orange juice is a pretty heavy juice. Because of that, we could float another juice on top of it to make like a striated effect. So we're gonna try with this cran apple. The way you do that is you either slowly pour it down the side of the glass, or you pour it over the curved side of a teaspoon, like the top. This is how those striped cocktails are achieved. So you can do that with fruit juices as well. If I've done my calculations correct and that this juice is lighter density than orange juice, which we'll see in a second. If it doesn't work, it's going to create a really beautiful orangey pink flavor and color, and so no worries, but we can try it. Nope, I'm not going to do it. I think it's the apple, but if this was just cranberry, because I have done it with just cranberry, oh, it's beautiful with that deep, deep red. So you could finish this off a couple of different ways. You could do 1-to-1 parts juice, just like this, stir it together, and you're done. You could top it off with a little bit of that alcohol, like I was saying. You could top it off with a sprig of mint, or you can top it off, leave a little bit of room. Well, I'll stir that first. That's a pretty color. And top it off with sparkling water. Second to a champagne bottle popping, that's a pretty good sound. I like that version better, but I'm a big fan of sparkling water. Okay. What do you think? This was all from the market. Okay, it wasn't all from the market, but it was mostly from the market. Super doable and not too hard. I hope that maybe you learned something new today. And even if you didn't, I hope that it gave you that feeling that you can grab whatever you have around and make some happiness and serve those who you love around you. That's always my goal. So thank you so much for spending time with me today. I really appreciate it. I know that time is your greatest resource. Before we sign out, does anybody have any questions? I'll show you the brand that I like. This brand is called California olive oil, which I guess is kind of weird that it's named after where it comes from, but that's what it's called, just California olive oil. It comes in this green square bottle. There are a bunch of different blends, light, medium, heavy, spicy. They have little descriptors here, like if you're into something that's more grassy, if you're into something that's more just like clean and regular, just go with a medium if you don't really have a strong preference like that. I like this brand because not only do I really support this company and what they're doing, they have really great practices. They have they're non-GMO, they're certified organic, they pay their workers a fair wage, which I love. But also, I think that for the price, it's a really flavorful, great cold pressed olive oil option. And cold pressed is generally the gold standard in the way that olive oils are made. Always look for that. So I really like this brand. I've used it for a while, and maybe I'm just accustomed to the taste now. But generally anything that is, again, cold pressed, if it has a greenish color, that's sometimes a good indicator. Although, gosh, if you want to go into a rabbit hole, you could read about olive oil fraud. It's crazy. I'm not going to go into it here, but it's very easy to make something look good, even though maybe you're like dyeing it green or something. It's a very confusing world. So just a little bit of research pays off, but you don't have to necessarily go down that aisle where the olive oils are and choose the one that is the crazy most expensive to make sure that it's a good quality. You can get something that is much less expensive that is still good quality. So again, I go for this California, but maybe even if you ever go into an olive oil store, which there are some, I think there's one at Easton, you can try oils, and that's a really great way to get your feet wet to figure out what you like. So I am not loyal to a particular brand. If you can believe it, you probably can. I have tasted vinegars in a big tasting line before, and the high end, the low end, the organic, the kind that come from a mother. You can grow your own vinegar. I've done that before, but I never want to do it again. Once you see a mother one time, you could look that up. It kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies. Anyway, I'm not really beholden to any sort of brand. So as long as it tastes really clean and not too chemically, and it does everything for me that I need it to, sometimes I just get even the grocery store brand. So, yeah.
White rice, apple for pickling.
Oh, for pickling, I would go with white vinegar or apple cider vinegar or red wine vinegar. I would save other vinegars that are a little bit less acidic, have a little bit less of a snap, like rice wine vinegar or champagne vinegar, balsamic vinegar, for more of a finishing or a dressing type thing, something that's not going to sit for a while or have any heat application or be cooked in any way. Yeah. Any other questions? Tommy? So as I told you, Mitchell Hall is closed to the public right now, although we do have some classes that are back. It's really nice to see students here in the building again. And one of the great things that we're going to start to rev up again are our recreational cooking classes. That's called The Mix. And you could check out more about that on themix.cscc.edu. The Mix is an array of classes that are not affiliated with credit. And by that, I mean, you can be anybody in the community and take one of our mixed classes. And there's a really great schedule that'll be coming up soon on that site, an array of topics held at all different times of the day and all different days of the week. The Mix was a really great program that we were putting on here in Mitchell Hall before everything got crazy and closed down. So keep that in your back pocket, sign up for some of our cooking classes. Anything else? Tommy? Okay, great. Well, I think that my contact information might be listed in my bio on the Women's Summit page. Feel free to get in touch with me. I love to chat about food or kitchen questions or confusions, or maybe even do a little bit of debating. I love that. So please feel free to reach out to me. So I'm going to let you go. I'm going to dive into these plates of food. Thank you again for spending time with me, and have a good weekend, everyone.